For the first day of school, my mother-in-law gave my son a backpack she found in the trash, while giving my sister-in-law's daughter a new laptop and $2,000, with the words, "You're the son of trailer trash, so your gift is appropriate." This she delivered after I had been helping her and giving her $2,000 every month. What I did after those words shocked everyone, especially my mother-in-law. But before I begin, I'll ask you to subscribe to the channel and give it a like. Thank you, and enjoy listening. Catherine pressed the send button and leaned back in her chair, staring at her phone screen. Another $2,000 had gone to her mother-in-law's account. The third year in a row, every 15th of the month, like clockwork. Martha had even stopped reminding her, just waited. And the money came. Outside the office window, August rain drizzled. 3 weeks remained until the start of the school year, and Catherine was already making a shopping list for 7-year-old Max backpack, notebooks, pens, uniform, everything like all parents. Only she had a special expense item that not everyone knew about. "Kate, meeting in 10 minutes." Secretary Olivia peeked into the office. "Coming now." Catherine quickly put her phone in her purse and took the folders with reports. At the financial consulting firm, Summit Financial, she had been working as chief analyst for 8 years. Her salary of $120,000 allowed her to support the family without major problems and still help her mother-in-law. Although the word help wasn't quite accurate here, more like provide for. When 3 years ago Martha hinted that her Social Security wasn't enough for a decent life, Catherine offered financial support without hesitation. Then it seemed natural to help an elderly woman, her husband's mother. Dennis was grateful, mother-in-law content, family peace solid. But with each month something changed. Martha became increasingly demanding, and her comments about her daughter-in-law's trailer park origins became more frequent and barbed. After the meeting, Catherine drove home to their 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs. Dennis had already returned from work and was helping Max assemble a Lego set on the living room floor. "Hi, sunshine." Her husband stood up and hugged his wife. "How are things?" "Fine. Already sent it to Mom." "Yes, as usual." Dennis nodded, but Catherine noticed a slight shadow on his face. Lately he'd been reacting strangely to mentions of helping his mother, either embarrassed or something else. "Mom, is Grandma Martha coming this weekend?" asked Max, not looking up from his Legos. "I don't know. Baby, probably she'll come." Martha indeed appeared every weekend, arriving by Uber, surveying the apartment with a critical eye, teaching Max proper manners, and inevitably finding a reason to criticize Catherine. Either the pot roast wasn't right, or there was dust on the bookshelf, or Max was too noisy for a well-mannered boy. Saturday morning, Catherine was vacuuming the living room carpet when the doorbell rang. "It's me," came her mother-in-law's familiar voice through the intercom. Martha came up to the second floor in her usual outfit, black cardigan, even in the heat, designer purse and sensible flats, hair in a neat bob, lips painted with coral lipstick. "Hello, Katie." She kissed her daughter-in-law on the cheek, leaving a lipstick mark. "Dennis is home, on the balcony fixing Max's bicycle." "And where's my grandson?" "In the courtyard, playing with the boys." Martha nodded and walked to the kitchen, surveying the apartment along the way. Catherine saw that look, evaluating, searching for flaws. "Will you have coffee?" she offered. "Of course, just decaf. My heart's acting up." Catherine started the coffee maker and got out cookies. Outside the window, children's voices and the sound of a basketball could be heard. "Katie," her mother-in-law suddenly said, settling at the kitchen table, "do you know the neighbors praise you?" "In what sense?" "Yesterday I met Barbara from 2B. She says, 'What a great guy your Dennis is, helping his mother, sending money every month. Such a caring son.'" Catherine froze, holding a box of cookies. Barbara lived 1 floor up and indeed often met Martha in the lobby. "Martha, but I'm the one giving the money, not Dennis." Oh, Katie. Her mother-in-law smiled, but the smile was somehow unpleasant. Does it matter? Everything's shared in a marriage. Dennis earns, so Dennis helps and you just transfer it. A technical procedure, so to speak. At that moment Dennis himself entered the kitchen, wiping his hands with a rag. Hi, Mom. How are you? Just telling Katie how the neighbors praise you for helping your mother. Such a caring son you've become. Dennis looked at his wife, then at his mother. Something incomprehensible flickered in his eyes. Mom, you know it's Kate. Oh, Dennis, don't be modest. Her mother-in-law waved her hand. The man is head of the family, so the help comes from him. Right, Katie? Catherine was silent, feeling something burning inside. It turned out her monthly transfers were being transformed in others' eyes into the son's care for his mother, while she herself became merely a technical executor. After her mother-in-law left, Catherine couldn't calm down. She washed dishes, cleaned the apartment, but her thoughts revolved around one thing. Martha was deliberately appropriating her help, presenting Dennis as the benefactor. On Tuesday, when Catherine was returning from work, she met that same Barbara in the lobby. Katie, hi, the neighbor greeted her. How are you? How's Max? Everything's good, thank you. Listen, what a golden husband you have, Barbara suddenly said. Martha was telling me he sends her $2,000 every month. Not every son cares for his mother like that. Catherine felt her cheeks burning. Barbara, did she mention where Dennis gets that kind of money? What do you mean, where? The neighbor was surprised. He's in business. She says he has his own construction company. Gets contracts, earns well. Construction company? Catherine repeated. Well, yes, Martha is so proud. Her son's an entrepreneur, successful person. Not like some who work a 9 to 5 their whole life. Catherine said goodbye and went up home, feeling a mixture of anger and bewilderment. It turned out her mother-in-law wasn't just appropriating her money, but inventing whole stories about Dennis's successful business, and the hint about those who work a regular job clearly referred to her. At home, she decided to talk to her husband. Den, do you know what your mom tells the neighbors about us? What exactly? Dennis was sitting at his laptop checking work email. That you have a construction company, and that you help her with money. Construction company? He looked up. Where'd she get that? I don't know, but Barbara congratulated me today on your business successes. Dennis frowned, closed his laptop. Kate, Mom sometimes embellishes. She's uncomfortable admitting her daughter-in-law helps her. That's why she makes up stories about my business. Uncomfortable. And I'm supposed to not be uncomfortable that my help is attributed to you. What's the difference, Kate? The main thing is Mom's provided for. The difference is I work to earn this money. And your mom makes me out to be some appendage to your imaginary successes. Dennis sighed. Don't dramatize. Mom's old. She wants to be proud of her son. What's wrong with that? But Catherine already understood there was a lot wrong. And this was only the beginning. The next day, taking Max to daycare, she accidentally overheard 2 mothers talking. Did you see what new toys Pauline has? One was saying. Pauline, the one from Building C. Yes, the one who sometimes walks with her grandmother. New iPad, expensive dolls. Grandmother says she buys everything. Rich family, clearly. Catherine remembered Pauline, 8 years old, daughter of Sharon. The girl was indeed always dressed like from a catalog, and her toys were the most modern and expensive. But where would Martha get money for such gifts? Social Security, plus her $2,000 a month. That was good, of course, but not enough to buy granddaughters iPads and expensive dolls. That evening Catherine decided to carefully question her husband. Dan, how's Sharon managing financially with Pauline alone? Fine, seems like. Works at a bank, decent salary, and Mom helps her sometimes. Birthday, Christmas, usual gifts. Does she buy anything for Pauline? Dennis shrugged. Well, she's the granddaughter, so of course she spoils her a bit. A bit. Catherine thought about that word. If a bit means an iPad for $800 and dolls at $100 each, then what's a lot? On Thursday, picking up Max from daycare, she saw Pauline with a new toy, a Transformer robot, the kind that costs at least $150 in stores. Pauline, what a cool toy, Catherine said. Grandma Martha gave it to me, the girl answered proudly. Just because. She said, I'm a good granddaughter and deserve gifts. Just because. Without reason. For $150. That evening, Catherine calculated. $2,000 a month equals $24,000 a year. Minus her mother-in-law's expenses for food, utilities, clothes, at least $12,000 remained. Quite enough to regularly spoil one granddaughter with expensive gifts. And what did Max get? Routine candy on weekends, and lectures about how to behave. On Friday, Catherine drove home from work thinking about the strange distribution of grandmother's generosity between grandchildren. Max lived with parents who supported his grandmother, while Pauline lived with a single mother. Logically, more attention should go to Max, but it turned out the opposite. At home, a surprise awaited her. Martha was sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee with Dennis. Katie, come in, sit down, her mother-in-law invited. We were just talking about you. About what exactly? Catherine hung up her jacket and joined the coffee break. Well, Dennis was telling me about your successes at work. Good job, you earn well. In Martha's voice were notes that Catherine didn't like. Something between approval and calculation. Dennis said you got a small bonus this month, she answered carefully. How much, if it's not a secret? Catherine exchanged glances with her husband. Why did her mother-in-law need to know the size of her bonus? Martha, why do you ask? Just curious. We're family after all. And besides, I've been thinking, maybe we should increase the help a little. Prices are rising, utilities getting more expensive. Catherine felt everything inside compressing. $2,000 a month wasn't enough for her mother-in-law. Mom, Dennis intervened. We need to prepare Max for school ourselves now. Big expenses. Oh, come on, honey. Martha smiled gently. Max will grow up, but I'm aging. Maybe while my health permits, I should think about creating more comfortable conditions for myself. What conditions? Catherine asked. Well, I'd like to replace the kitchen cabinets. Mine are from the 80s. And buy a new refrigerator and maybe renovate the condo. Catherine quickly calculated in her head. Kitchen, minimum $8,000, refrigerator $2,000, renovation another $12,000 at least. Over $20,000 total. Martha, that's a lot of money. But not all at once, her mother-in-law laughed. Gradually, if you increase the help a bit, say to $3,000 a month, then in a year it would add up to just enough for the renovation. $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year. Almost all of Catherine's after-tax income. Mom, Dennis tried to intervene again, but his mother-in-law interrupted him. Dennis, don't worry. I know Katie won't abandon me. Right, dear? And at that moment Catherine understood she'd fallen into a trap. Refusing meant looking greedy and heartless. Agreeing meant condemning herself to even greater financial bondage. Martha, I'll think about it, she answered evasively. After her mother-in-law left, Catherine couldn't fall asleep for a long time. $3,000 a month, more than she spent on the family. It meant her mother-in-law would live better than they themselves. The next day, Saturday, Dennis went to a friend's lake house, and Max was taken by Catherine's mother. Left alone, Catherine decided to organize documents. She was sorting through old papers when she came across a curious find. In a folder with Dennis's documents lay a notebook she'd never seen before. In Martha's neat handwriting were entries. January, $2,000 Catherine. Total debt, $2,000. February, $2,000 Catherine. Total debt, $4,000. March, $2,000 Catherine. Total debt, $6,000. The entries went month by month, 3 years in a row. At the end was a total sum. Dennis's family total debt, $72,000. Debt. Catherine reread the entry several times. Martha considered her help not gifts, but a loan. It turned out the family owed her mother-in-law $72,000. But that wasn't all. On the next page was another section, gifts for Pauline. January, iPad $800, doll $150. February, bicycle $450, clothes $300. March, toys $200, books $100. And so on month by month. Over $8,000 a year was spent on Pauline. And what about Max? Catherine found the corresponding page. Max is Catherine's son. Character spoiled by maternal upbringing. Limit gifts to minimum so as not to spoil further. Conduct educational conversations regularly. Catherine sat on the floor among scattered papers, feeling the world turning upside down. Her mother-in-law kept detailed records of her investments and considered the family debtors. Meanwhile, the money Catherine gave was partially spent on luxurious gifts for the other granddaughter, while her own son received minimal attention and gifts. There was another page in the notebook, future plan. 1. Increase monthly help to $3,000 to $3,500. 2. Demand compensation for accumulated debt. 3. If refused, use moral pressure through Dennis. 4. Remember, they should be grateful I tolerate them. The last line especially resonated. Trailer trash girl. But useful for now, keep within bounds. When Dennis and Max returned that evening, Catherine silently showed her husband the notebook. Kate, where did you get this? It was in your documents. Did you know? Dennis flipped through several pages. His face grew increasingly grim. No, of course not. Mom never said she kept any records. Den, she considers us debtors and spends my money on gifts for Pauline, while Max gets crumbs. This is wrong, Dennis said quietly. What are we going to do? Dennis was silent for a long time, leafing through the notebook. I'll talk to Mom. This is some kind of misunderstanding. But Catherine already understood there was no misunderstanding. There was a carefully thought-out system where she played the role of cash cow and her son the role of scapegoat. On Sunday, Martha came to them as usual, but Catherine looked at her with different eyes now. Behind the coffee, behind the routine conversations about weather and health, hid cold calculation. Katie, her mother-in-law said when Dennis left to help Max with his Legos, have you thought about our conversation? About increasing the help? I've thought about it, Catherine answered shortly. And what conclusion did you reach? That $2,000 is already a lot. Martha put her cup on the table and looked intently at her daughter-in-law. A lot. For a husband's mother. Katie, have you forgotten who accepted you into the family? Who closed their eyes to your background? My background? Well, yes, you're from rural Kentucky, from some trailer park. If not for Dennis, you'd still be stuck there. Catherine felt blood rushing to her face. Martha, I graduated from Georgetown with honors and work in a major financial firm. My background has nothing to do with it. Georgetown financial firm, her mother-in-law mocked. But there's no class. That, my dear, wasn't instilled in a trailer. Pride, though, that was instilled perfectly. What do you mean, no class? It means a classy woman doesn't haggle when it comes to helping her husband's family. A classy woman understands her place. Her place. Catherine remembered the notebook entries. Keep within bounds. And what is my place, Martha? To provide for elders and not ask unnecessary questions. Dennis is my son, and whatever you think about yourself, he'll remain my son. And you're temporary. The word temporary sounded like a slap. Catherine stood up from the table. I'll go check what Max is doing. Go. And think about my words. Catherine left the kitchen but stopped in the hallway. Through the half-open door, she heard her mother-in-law dialing someone's number. "Sharon, it's me." "Yes, at their place." "No," she's still resisting. "Listen, could you come over?" "Yes, right now." "No, not alone. Bring Pauline." "Yes, that conversation we planned." Catherine held her breath. What conversation? What were they planning? She thinks she's so important because she earns money. Need to bring her down to earth. Of course, but back to school we'll arrange everything. The main thing is in front of the child. She won't dare make a scene in front of her little boy. Back to school. In front of a child. Catherine felt a chill in her chest. Yes, exactly, first day of school. It'll be symbolic. Let her learn what's what in this family. All right, waiting. Get Pauline something nice on the way. She deserves it. The call ended. Catherine quietly went to Max's room where he was building a fortress from his Legos. "Mom, look what a tower I'm making." "Awesome, baby." She sat down next to her son, but her thoughts were about something completely different. What were they planning for the first day of school? Why specifically in front of the child? And most importantly, what did "let her learn what's what in this family" mean? Half an hour later, Sharon arrived with Pauline. She looked pleased and slightly excited at the same time. "Hi, everyone." She hugged her brother and nodded to Catherine. "Martha, how are you?" "Well, having an educational conversation with my daughter-in-law about family values." Sharon smiled meaningfully. "I see. And where are the kids?" "Max is in his room," Catherine answered. "Pauline, go play with your cousin," Sharon commanded. When the children left, 3 women remained in the kitchen. Martha and Sharon exchanged glances, and Catherine understood something important was about to happen. "Kate," Sharon began, "Mom told me about your conversation, about increasing the help. And that you don't understand the situation. Mom's alone, Social Security is small, health isn't good. $3,000 a month isn't money for such a successful woman as you. Sharon, do you help Mom yourself?" Sharon hesitated. I have my own daughter. Pauline's growing. She needs a lot." "Needs a lot." Catherine remembered the notebook entries. iPads for $800. What does that have to do with anything? "It has to do with my money being spent on gifts for your daughter while my son gets crumbs." Martha sharply put her cup on the table. "Catherine, you're forgetting yourself. Pauline is a well-bred girl. She deserves encouragement. And Max." She looked meaningfully at her daughter-in-law. "Max is growing up spoiled. It's useful for him to know the value of money. He's 7 years old. Just the right time to learn. In my day, children at 7 already understood who's in charge." Sharon nodded. "Mom's right. You spoil him too much. A child should know the hierarchy." Hierarchy. Catherine looked at these 2 women and understood she was in hostile territory. They talked about her 7-year-old son like some kind of problem child who needed to be put in his place. "And what do you propose?" she asked. Mother and daughter exchanged glances again. "We propose you think," Martha said slowly. "Think about how soon Max will start school. A new stage of life. And it's very important he understands certain things from the very beginning." "What things?" "That there's order in the family. There are those who deserve respect, and there are those who should show that respect. There are children who get good things, and there are those who get what they deserve." In her mother-in-law's voice appeared notes that made goosebumps run down Catherine's back. Something threatening, cold. "Martha, what are you talking about?" "About upbringing, dear. About how some lessons need to be taught visually, especially to children. Especially children from certain backgrounds." Certain backgrounds. Again a hint at her trailer park roots. "Mom, maybe not yet?" Sharon said quietly, glancing toward Max's room. "No, we should. Let Catherine know we won't endlessly tolerate her attitude. We have a plan, and we'll definitely implement it." "What plan?" Catherine felt her heart start beating faster. "You'll see," Martha smiled. "First day of school, you'll see. It'll be a very instructive day, especially for Max." At that moment, crying came from Max's room. Catherine jumped up and ran to her son. Max was sitting on the floor next to a destroyed Lego fortress, rubbing his eyes with his fists. "What happened, baby?" "Pauline said I build badly and knocked down my tower, and then said I don't know how to play because I'm not right." Catherine hugged her son and looked at Pauline, who stood nearby with an innocent expression. "Pauline, why did you break Max's construction?" "I didn't mean to. He was just doing it wrong." "Wrong? It's his toy. He can build however he wants." Pauline shrugged. "Grandma Martha says some children need to learn to behave properly. Max doesn't obey adults, so nothing works out for him." The 8-year-old girl was repeating her grandmother's words like a learned lesson. And in those words, Catherine heard an echo of that conversation in the kitchen. "Pauline, go to your mom," she said as calmly as possible. When the girl left, Catherine sat down next to her son. "Max, you build great. Don't listen to anyone who tells you otherwise." "But Pauline," said Grandma Martha. "Whatever Grandma Martha said, remember, you're a wonderful boy, and Mom and Dad love you very much." Max nodded, but there was confusion in his eyes. A 7-year-old child didn't understand why adults were telling him contradictory things. When Sharon left with Pauline, followed by Martha, Catherine told Dennis about the overheard conversation. "They're planning something for the first day of school," she said. "Something that concerns Max. Kate, aren't you being dramatic? Maybe Mom just wants to give her grandson a back-to-school gift." "What gift?" "Dennis, did you hear what she said about an educational moment? About how some children get what they deserve?" Dennis frowned. "I'll talk to Mom, find out what she's planning." "And if she doesn't tell you?" "She will. I'm still her son." But Catherine already doubted that Martha's maternal feelings were stronger than her desire to put her daughter-in-law in her place. The notebook clearly stated, "Use moral pressure through Dennis." Her mother-in-law knew how to manipulate her son. That evening, when Max fell asleep, Catherine sat in the kitchen for a long time thinking about what happened. 3 years ago, she thought she was helping the family. Now she understood she'd fallen into a complex game where she played the role of cash cow and her son the role of scapegoat. $2,000 a month had turned into an instrument of pressure. Her mother-in-law used this money not only for herself, but also to show the difference between grandchildren. Pauline received expensive gifts and care. Max, coldness and criticism. And now they were planning something special for the first day of school. Something that should put Catherine and her son in their place once and for all. Catherine stood and went to the window. Behind the glass, the lights of the suburban evening flickered. Somewhere out there in her condo, Martha and Sharon were discussing their plan. A plan that should show the trailer trash girl her true place in the family hierarchy. But Catherine had 3 weeks until the first day of school. 3 weeks to understand what exactly was being prepared and decide how to react. She was no longer going to be the submissive daughter-in-law who silently endured humiliation for the sake of family peace. If her mother-in-law wanted war, she'd get it. But for now, Catherine didn't know what exactly was being prepared. She only knew it would be public, it would be humiliating, and it would be directed against her son. And she wouldn't allow that from anyone, ever. The next day, Monday, Catherine went to work with a firm intention to develop an action plan. But first she needed more information. She needed to find out what exactly Martha and Sharon had planned. And she had an idea how to do it. The first part of the story was coming to an end, but the intrigue was only building. Catherine was no longer the naive daughter-in-law who didn't notice manipulations. She'd become a player ready to fight for her son and her dignity. And Martha with her daughter were preparing a trap that should work on the most important day for any school child, the first day of school. Only they didn't know their opponent also had cards up her sleeve, and that submissive Catherine was ready to turn into a formidable opponent when it came to her child's well-being. The The battle for family dignity was only beginning. Tuesday morning, Catherine took Max to daycare and went to work with one thought. She needed to find out what her mother-in-law and Sharon were preparing. All day she was distracted, thinking about the overheard conversation and that notebook with entries. After work, she decided to stop by Target for school supplies. Max needed notebooks, pencils, colored markers, everything like regular second graders. In the stationery aisle, Catherine was choosing notebooks when she heard a familiar voice. "Pauline, which notebook do you like better? This one with Disney princesses or that one with unicorns?" Martha stood at the neighboring shelf with her granddaughter. In their cart already lay a mountain of supplies: expensive marker set, art supplies, pencil case, several decorative notebooks. "Grandma, can I have both?" Pauline asked. "Of course, sweetie. You're my smart girl, you study well. You've earned it." Catherine calculated the cost of items in their cart, at least $300 for an 8-year-old girl who already received gifts every month. "And I want this doll." Pauline pointed at the toy display. "A doll? But you already have so many. But this one's special. Look, she has real hair and you can change her outfit." Martha looked at the price tag, $1.80. "All right, dear, but this will be your early gift for the first day of school." "And what else will there be for the first day?" Her mother-in-law leaned down to her granddaughter and whispered something quietly in her ear. Pauline giggled and nodded. "That'll be fun, Grandma." "Very fun, sweetie. You'll see how important it is to be a good granddaughter." Catherine hid behind a display and continued listening. "And what will you give Max?" "Max?" Her mother-in-law's voice became colder. "Max will get what he deserves. No more and no less." "What did he deserve?" "A lesson, dear. A very important lesson about how everyone in life gets according to their worth." Pauline giggled again, clearly not understanding the meaning of her grandmother's words, but rejoicing that she was in favor. Catherine waited until they passed further, and only then came out from behind the display. $900 for school supplies and toys for one granddaughter. And for Max, a lesson about getting what you deserve. At home, she told Dennis about the meeting in the store. $900 for school supplies. Her husband was surprised. "That's more than we spend on Max in 6 months." "Exactly. And all with my money that I transfer to your mother." "Kate, maybe talk to Mom? Explain that it's wrong." "Dennis, your mother perfectly understands what she's doing. She's deliberately spoiling one granddaughter at the expense of the other grandson. But why would she do that?" Catherine looked at her husband and understood he genuinely didn't get it. For him, his mother was just an elderly woman who was sometimes difficult. He hadn't seen the notebook with entries, hadn't heard conversations about the trailer trash. "Dennis, your mother wants to show me my place and uses children for it." "Mom's not like that. She's just old school." "Old school." Catherine understood her husband wasn't ready to accept the truth about his mother, so counting on his support, for now, wasn't possible. The next day, Wednesday, Martha called with an unexpected request. "Katie, dear, could you stop by my place this evening? I want to discuss something." "What exactly?" "Just little things. About Max, about school." "Come after work. We'll have dinner together." In her mother-in-law's voice were notes of false warmth. Catherine was on guard but decided to go. Maybe she could find something out. Martha's condo was in an older building in a nice part of town. 2 bedrooms, dated but well-maintained. The furnishings were from the 80s and 90s. Floral curtains, traditional furniture. "Come in, sit down," her mother-in-law invited. "Coffee or tea?" "Coffee, thank you." Martha bustled in the kitchen while Catherine looked around. On the side table stood photographs, many shots with Pauline, several with Dennis as a child, and only one with Max, and even that was a group photo from a birthday a year ago. "Here you go. Cookies are store-bought, sorry." Her mother-in-law sat across from her and looked intently at her daughter-in-law. "Katie, I've been thinking, Aren't we expecting too much from Max too soon? In what sense? Well, he's still small, and we're already demanding mature behavior. Maybe we should, how to put it, have more age-appropriate expectations. Catherine frowned. Where was this sudden concern for her grandson coming from? Martha, what do you mean? Well, for example, gifts for the first day of school. I've been thinking and decided children need to receive gifts according to their level of development. Pauline's already mature, understanding, and Max is still a baby. He's 7 like Pauline was a year ago. Age isn't everything, dear. There's also upbringing, understanding of life. Pauline is more, how to put it, more prepared for special gifts. Catherine put her cup on the table. And what are you trying to say? That sometimes it's useful to give children gifts that teach them something, not always spoiling them with expensive toys. What gifts? Martha smiled mysteriously. You'll see. It'll be a surprise, but a very instructive surprise. Max will remember this first day for a long time. In her voice was something that made everything inside Catherine compress. An instructive surprise that her grandson would remember for a long time. It sounded like a threat. Martha, I want to know what you've prepared for my son. Patience, dear. Not long left. By the way, when will you transfer the money this month? As usual, on the 15th. Could you do it a bit earlier? I need to buy something for the occasion. What exactly? Gifts, of course, and some materials for the surprise. Materials for the surprise. Catherine felt goosebumps crawling down her back. All right, I'll transfer tomorrow. Thank you, dear. You're so understanding. On the way home, Catherine kept thinking about the conversation. Her mother-in-law was preparing something that required special materials. And this surprise was supposed to teach Max something. At home, another unpleasant conversation awaited her. Dennis was sitting on the couch with a thoughtful expression. Kate, Mom called. Said you were at her place. Yes, I stopped by. She told me about gifts for the first day of school. Says she wants to do something special. And what do you think about it? Honestly, I'm glad Mom finally paid attention to Max lately. She really has been spending more time with Pauline. Catherine looked at her husband in amazement. He genuinely didn't understand that his mother's attention to Max might not be kind. Dennis, doesn't it seem strange to you that she won't say what exactly she'll give? Mom loves surprises. Remember, for my birthday last year, she also built up suspense, then gave me a nice watch. That was for you. Now it's about a child. So what? Kids love surprises more than adults. Catherine understood the conversation was reaching a dead end. Dennis didn't want to see anything bad in his mother's intentions. Thursday evening, she decided to try another approach. She took Max and went to her parents. Maybe they could help figure something out. Michael and Janet lived in a modest house across town. They met their daughter and grandson joyfully. Max, Grandma, hugged her grandson. How are you, big guy? Ready for 2nd grade? Yeah. Mom already bought notebooks and new pencils. And will there be gifts? Asked Grandpa. Grandma Martha said there'll be a surprise, the boy answered. Catherine's parents exchanged glances. They knew their daughter's mother-in-law and were wary of her. Katie, what surprise? Asked Mom. I don't know. Martha won't say. Strange, Dad frowned. Usually grandmas love to talk about gifts for grandkids. Maybe something expensive being prepared, Janet suggested. Catherine shook her head. I don't think so. More likely something educational. In what sense? She talked about a lesson Max will remember for a long time. Michael looked seriously at his daughter. Katie, have you thought about having a backup plan? Maybe get a gift yourself, just in case. In case what? In case your mother-in-law's gift isn't what Max is hoping for. It was a good idea. Catherine decided to buy her son the Lego set he'd been wanting for months. Just in case. Friday, she stopped by the toy store and bought a large Lego Technic set. Expensive at $200, but Max would be thrilled. At home, she hid the box in her closet. Saturday morning, Martha called with another idea. Katie, let's all go to my friend Nancy's lake house tomorrow. She's been inviting us. I don't know, we had plans. What plans? It's Sunday, you need to relax. And it'll be good for Max to be outside before school starts. Will Sharon and Pauline be there? Of course, the kids will have more fun together, and we can discuss first day preparations. Catherine agreed, though an inner voice suggested it was a bad idea. Sunday morning they all went together to Nancy's lake house. A woman of about 60, Martha's friend since their kids were young, met them warmly. Come in, come in. What adorable children. These are the grandkids. Yes, this is Max and Pauline, her mother-in-law introduced them. Max is Dennis's son and Pauline is Sharon's daughter. Catherine noticed how differently Martha introduced the children. Pauline was presented as a granddaughter, and Max just as the son, as if emphasizing Max wasn't quite an equal member of the family. The day passed calmly. Children played by the water. Adults drank iced tea on the deck, but Catherine constantly caught glances from her mother-in-law and Sharon. They whispered about something, nodded toward the children. Nancy, remember how we handled back to school when our kids were young? Martha suddenly said, I remember. Kids got what they earned, not equal treatment. Exactly. Not like now, when every kid gets participation trophies. Need to distinguish achievement. Distinguish what? Catherine asked. Children, dear. There are children who deserve recognition, and there are those who need to understand consequences. Nancy nodded. Martha's right. Parenting isn't just praise. Sometimes you need tough love. So, what have you got planned for the first day? Nancy asked with interest. Martha smiled mysteriously. A surprise. A very instructive surprise. Interesting. Will you tell the kids ahead? Of course, but not the same message. Pauline will get what she deserves for good behavior. And Max. She looked at her grandson, who was playing with sand by the water. Max will get what he's earned with his attitude. At that moment, Max ran up to the deck. Grandma Martha, will I get a gift for the first day, too? Of course, buddy. A very special gift. What kind? You'll see. It'll be a surprise you'll never forget. The boy nodded happily and ran back to play, and Catherine felt cold gripping her heart. There was something ominous in her mother-in-law's words. That evening when they returned home, Max was excited and happy. Mom, Grandma Martha, said the gift will be really special. What could it be? I don't know, baby. We'll see. Can I try to guess? Sure. Maybe it'll be a big Lego set or a new bike or a Nintendo Switch. Catherine looked at her son's shining eyes and felt everything inside compressing from a premonition of trouble. Max expected a wonderful gift, and her mother-in-law was preparing him a lesson. Max, if the gift isn't what you expect, you won't be too upset, right? I guess not. Why wouldn't it be good? Sometimes adults give not what kids want, but what they think is best. But Grandma loves me, doesn't she? Catherine looked into honest, childish eyes and couldn't find what to answer. Did Martha love her grandson, or was he just a tool for controlling her daughter-in-law? Monday, August 20th, an event occurred that finally convinced Catherine her mother-in-law was preparing something bad. She came home from work and discovered someone had been in the apartment. Not a burglar, nothing was missing, but things were slightly moved. Desk drawers half open. Dennis, did you come home today? She asked her husband by phone. No, why? Someone was in the apartment. Maybe maintenance. Or checking something. I don't know. You didn't give keys to anyone. Only your mom. She has a spare set. For emergencies. Spare set. Catherine remembered how Martha had asked for keys 6 months ago so she could water plants if needed. Then it seemed reasonable. She walked through the whole apartment, checking what they might have been looking for. Her documents had been gone through, the closet too, and in Max's room the toy drawer was half open. What was her mother-in-law looking for? And most importantly, did she find what she wanted? That evening Catherine decided to check her guess. She called Martha. "Martha, did you happen to stop by our place today?" "I did. Why?" "Why did you go through documents?" "What documents?" Her mother-in-law's voice became guarded. "My papers in the desk, and in Max's room the drawer was open." "Oh, that. Yes, I just wanted to see what toys Max has. Need to know what interests him to choose an appropriate gift." Appropriate gift. Catherine didn't believe a single word. "And what did you find interesting?" "Well, a lot. The boy has toys like a toy store. Clearly growing up spoiled. That's not good, Katie. Very not good. Children need to learn the value of things. Now Pauline understands value, but Max takes everything for granted. He's 7 years old. 7, time to learn about life. But don't worry, he'll soon get a very important lesson." After this conversation, Catherine finally understood something serious was being prepared. Her mother-in-law studied Max's toys not to choose an appropriate gift, but for something completely opposite. Wednesday, August 15th, she transferred the usual $2,000 to her mother-in-law's account. But this time she understood the money would go not to support an elderly woman, but to finance some plan against herself and her son. Thursday, Sharon called with an unexpected request. "Kate, could you help with Pauline on Saturday? I need to go into the office, some crisis." "What about Martha?" "Mom will be busy. Preparing for the first day of school." "Preparing for the first day. It's still 2 weeks away." "Well, yes, but Mom takes these things seriously. Wants to organize everything perfectly." Organize. Another word that alerted Catherine. "All right, bring Pauline over." Saturday morning, Sharon brought her daughter and immediately left, citing work emergency. Pauline was in high spirits. "Aunt Kate, Grandma Martha said the first day will be really interesting." "Why interesting?" "She said she'll show who in the family is good and who isn't, and that good children get good gifts. And not good ones get what they deserve," the girl answered matter-of-factly. Catherine sat down next to Pauline. "Do you know who's good and who's not?" "Of course, I'm good because I obey Grandma and Mom. And Max." She looked at her cousin, who was playing in the other room. "Max isn't very good." "Why?" "Grandma says he's spoiled and his mom doesn't know how to raise him right." "Doesn't know how to raise him right." An 8-year-old girl was repeating her grandmother's words without understanding their cruelty. "Pauline, what will happen on the first day?" "I don't know exactly, but Grandma said it'll be like a show. Everyone will see who's who. Like a show. So there would be an audience. Martha was preparing a public performance. Sunday, Catherine decided to make one last reconnaissance attempt. She called her mother-in-law and said she wanted to help prepare. "Martha, maybe I should pick up something for the first day? Order a cake or get decorations." "What?" "Thank you, dear, but everything's ready. I'll handle it all myself." "What if something's needed? Extra money or help?" No, everything's under control. Just come on time. At 11 a.m. sharp." "Why exactly 11 o'clock?" "Because that's when everything will begin. The show, so to speak." Show. Pauline was right. Her mother-in-law was preparing a theatrical production. "Martha, who else will be there?" "Everyone who should be. You and Dennis, the kids. And I invited a few friends. Let them see proper parenting in action. A few friends. Spectators for the humiliation spectacle. And what do you need from me?" "From you? Nothing special. Just be there and watch. Learn something. Learn." Catherine understood the lesson was intended not only for Max, but for her too. Monday, August 20th. Something happened that finally opened her eyes completely to her mother-in-law's plans. Dennis came home looking troubled. Kate, I had a weird conversation with Mom. What kind? She was asking about your parents, where they work, what they're like. Why? Says she wants to get to know them better. Maybe invite them for the first day. Catherine's parents, Martha, wanted them to witness what she'd planned. And what did you say? I told her, of course, that your dad is easygoing but stands his ground, and your mom is protective, always defends you. And how did your mom react? Smiled weird and said, well, we'll see how protective they are. Catherine felt cold in her chest. Her mother-in-law was gathering all witnesses to publicly put her family in their place. Den, did she say anything else? She did. Asked how you handle stress. Do you cry or get angry? And what did you say? That you usually get angry but keep it together, especially around Max. Around Max. Martha knew Catherine wouldn't dare make a scene in her son's presence and planned to use that. Tuesday evening, when Max fell asleep, Catherine sat at the computer searching online for information about emotionally abusive gifts to children. Maybe it was somehow legally actionable, but she found nothing specific. Formally, if a gift doesn't cause physical harm, it's just mean-spirited, not criminal. Wednesday, she decided to try talking to Sharon directly. Sharon, what's Mom planning for the first day? A surprise for the grandkids. Like what? Just curious. Max is really excited. Let him be excited. Mom's full of surprises. In Sharon's voice was something like smugness. Does Pauline know what it'll be? Pauline knows she'll get a gift worthy of a good girl. And the rest? Let the rest be a surprise. Catherine understood she wouldn't get anything from her sister-in-law. Sharon was in on it with her mother. Thursday, an event occurred that made Catherine even more concerned. She was picking up Max from daycare when she met teacher Amy. Catherine, Max's grandmother, came by yesterday. Martha? Why? Said she wanted to know how he behaves in class. Asked if he's obedient, how he interacts with other kids. And what did you tell her? The truth, that Max is a good kid, kind, shares toys. Though sometimes he can be stubborn, but that's normal for his age. And what did she say to that? Reacted strangely. Said, aha, stubborn, so being raised wrong. And also asked if he throws tantrums when upset. And what did you answer? Said he might cry if something doesn't work out, but doesn't throw fits. And she wrote something in a notebook. Wrote in a notebook. Martha was collecting a file on her own grandson. Amy, did she ask anything else? Yes. Asked how Max reacts to gifts. Does he show gratitude? Weird questions. I thought so too. Why would a grandmother need to know how her grandson reacts to gifts? Any kid would be happy. Any kid would be happy with real gifts. But what if the gift would be designed not to bring joy? At home, Catherine tried to carefully question Max. Buddy, what would you do if a gift turned out different than you expected? Different how? Well, like if you're expecting a toy, but someone gives you socks or something. I'd be bummed probably, but I'd still say thank you 'cause that's polite. And if it was something really weird? Like what kind of weird? Catherine realized she couldn't explain to a 7-year-old child that he might be humiliated through a gift. Nothing, buddy. Just wondering. Friday, Martha called with final instructions. Katie, Sunday don't forget to dress nicely. And dress Max up too. Why dress up? It's a special occasion. First day of school is important. Let everyone see what a nice family we have. Let everyone see. Again, a hint at an audience. Who exactly will be there? No one special. A couple neighbors. My friend Nancy. Want to share the celebration. What celebration? The celebration of grandkids growing up and everyone getting what they've earned. Saturday, the last day before fateful Sunday. An event occurred that finally convinced Catherine of the seriousness of her mother-in-law's intentions. She went to the grocery store and accidentally saw a familiar scene. By the dumpsters behind a neighboring apartment complex stood Martha, examining something carefully. Catherine hid behind a car and started watching. Her mother-in-law bent down to one of the dumpsters and pulled out a children's backpack, old, worn with broken zippers. Martha examined the backpack from all sides, shook her head, and shoved it into a large shopping bag. Then she looked around, made sure no one was watching, and quickly walked away. A backpack from a dumpster. Catherine felt her blood run cold. Could this really be the special gift for Max? She waited until her mother-in-law disappeared from view and approached the dumpster. Nearby lay more old school supplies. Torn notebooks, broken pencils, a crushed pencil case. Someone was throwing out old school things, and Martha was picking them up. For her grandson. For a lesson. At home, Catherine told Dennis about what she'd seen. Den, your mother is picking things from trash. What? Can't be. I saw with my own eyes. She pulled an old backpack from a dumpster. Maybe she, I don't know, was looking for something to donate? Mom's thrifty. Dennis, she's going to give this to Max for the first day of school. Kate, you're imagining things. Mom would never give her grandson trash. Never. Remember what she said about kids getting what they deserve. Dennis was silent for a moment. Maybe I should talk to her? Ask directly. Try. Dennis called his mother right in front of Catherine on speaker. Mom, Kate says she saw you by some dumpsters. What were you doing? Catherine couldn't hear the full answer, but saw her husband's face become increasingly puzzled. I see. Yeah, of course. Okay, Mom. He hung up and looked at his wife. She said she was looking for a box for wrapping. Saw a good one and took it. A box, Dennis. I saw a backpack, not a box. Mom said it was a decorative box shaped like a backpack. She wants to put the real gift inside as a fun surprise. Catherine understood Martha had easily deceived her son. He wanted to believe his mother wasn't capable of cruelty. Fine, she said. We'll see tomorrow. Sunday morning, the first day of school. Catherine woke with a heavy sense of dread. The day was bright and sunny, complete opposite of her mood. Max was excited and happy. He put on a new polo shirt and khakis his mom bought specially for the occasion and admired himself in the mirror. Mom, do I look good? You look great, sweetheart. Will there be a gift? There will be. What kind? What do you think? Catherine looked at her son's shining eyes and felt her heart compress with pain. In a few hours, this happy boy would face something he might remember his whole life. Max, she said, sitting next to her son, remember, whatever happens today, Mom and Dad love you very much. What's going to happen? Nothing special. Just remember that. At 10:45, they arrived at Martha's condo. Her mother-in-law's place was decorated with balloons and streamers. On the table stood a nice sheet cake with "Happy First Day" written in icing. But Catherine immediately noticed that in the corner of the living room stood two gift bags. One beautiful, decorated with tissue paper and ribbons, the other a plain plastic shopping bag. Come in, Martha greeted them. Max, you look so handsome, like a real student. 10 minutes later, Sharon arrived with Pauline. The girl wore a new designer dress and looked very pleased with herself. Grandma, when do we open presents? She immediately asked. Soon, sweetie, when all the guests arrive. Guests? At 11:15, Nancy showed up, that same lake house friend. Behind her, two of Martha's neighbors Catherine had seen once or twice. Let me introduce everyone, her mother-in-law said. This is my daughter-in-law, Katie, and her son, Max. And this is my daughter, Sharon, and my granddaughter, Pauline. Catherine noticed how differently Martha introduced the children. Pauline was my granddaughter, and Max was simply her son, as if he didn't quite belong to the family. When everyone was seated in the living room, Martha solemnly stood up. Dear friends, today is a special day. The first day of school, and I want to give my grandchildren gifts to start the year. She walked to the bags in the corner. Let's start with Pauline. My dear granddaughter, you've been such a good girl all year. Studied hard, listened to Grandma, so you've earned something special. Martha took the beautiful gift bag and ceremoniously handed it to Pauline. Thank you, Grandma. The girl began unwrapping. Catherine saw how her son watched tensely. Max understood his turn would be next. Pauline pulled out a brand new MacBook Air from the bag, a laptop that cost over $1,000. Oh, how wonderful, the guests gushed. And that's not all. Martha smiled and handed her granddaughter an envelope. Pauline opened it and pulled out a stack of $20 bills. $2,000 for school supplies and activities, Grandma announced. Because good children deserve good gifts. The guests applauded. Catherine looked at Max. The boy sat with wide eyes, imagining what amazing gift awaited him too. And now, Martha's voice became colder. Let's turn to Max. She picked up the plain plastic bag and walked toward her grandson. Max, she said, and there was none of the warmth in her voice that she'd used with Pauline. You're also getting a gift you've earned. Max eagerly reached for the bag, but Martha didn't hurry to hand it over. First, I want to say something to everyone here, she announced. Today is an important day, not just for kids, but for adults. A day when it becomes clear who's who in this family. Catherine felt goosebumps crawling down her back. It was beginning. You see, dear friends, in our family there are people of different, how shall I put it, different caliber. There are those who are born and raised with proper values, who understand what class and standards mean. And there are those who came from lesser circumstances. She looked directly at Catherine. Max is the son of a woman who grew up in a trailer park in rural Kentucky among uneducated people. And she's raising him accordingly, with no sense of hierarchy, no respect for his betters. Silence filled the room. Guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Therefore, Martha continued, I've decided to teach Max an important lesson, a lesson that everyone in life gets what they've earned. She held out the bag to the boy. Here's your gift, Max, open it. The boy, with shaking hands, opened the bag and looked inside. His face showed confusion. Take it out, Grandma ordered. Let everyone see what you got. Max slowly pulled out of the bag that same backpack Catherine had seen by the dumpster. Old, filthy, with torn straps and broken zippers. It's a backpack, the boy said quietly. Correct, Martha announced triumphantly. A backpack I found in the trash because you're the son of trailer trash, so your gift is appropriate. The room became so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Max held the garbage backpack and didn't understand what was happening. This I'm giving after I've been helping her and sending $2,000 every month, Martha finished, looking directly at her daughter-in-law. And then Catherine understood her moment had come. What she would do next would indeed shock everyone, especially her mother-in-law. Catherine looked at her 7-year-old son holding a filthy backpack from a dumpster and felt rage exploding inside her. Not just anger, a volcano of emotions she'd suppressed for 3 years. Max looked up at her, eyes full of confusion and pain. He didn't understand what was happening, but felt the humiliation. Mom, he said quietly, why did Grandma give me this? And then something inside Catherine finally snapped. She stood up from the couch, walked to her mother-in-law, and without saying a word, grabbed the backpack from her son's hands. Then she turned to Martha, and with all her strength threw the backpack in her face. Here's your gift back, she said in an icy voice. Martha recoiled, hand flying to her face. The backpack fell to the floor, trash and debris spilling out. What do you think you're doing? Her mother-in-law hissed. I'm protecting my son from an abusive woman, Catherine answered without raising her voice. But each word landed like a hammer blow. The guests sat with their mouths open. No one had expected this turn. Martha, Catherine continued, turning to address everyone. Dear guests, Want to know the truth about this caring grandmother. Kate, stop it! Dennis tried to intervene. No, I won't stop. For 3 years, I've been giving this woman $2,000 every month. $72,000 total. And she bought expensive gifts for one granddaughter while planning to publicly humiliate the other grandson. Catherine pulled out her phone and showed the guests her banking app. Look, $2,000 every 15th of the month. And yesterday I saw her digging through dumpsters to find this backpack for my son. That's not true. Martha shrieked. Not true? And you know what she told the neighbors? That Dennis helps her, not me. That he has his own construction company. She stole credit for my money and my generosity. Nancy and the neighbors exchanged glances. In their eyes was judgment, but no longer directed at Catherine. And most importantly, Catherine stepped closer to her mother-in-law. She kept records, considered my help a debt, wrote down every penny as if we owed her something. Where did you get my private notes? Martha went pale. Found them in my husband's papers. Everything's written there. How you spend my money spoiling Pauline, and how you plan to keep the trailer trash within bounds. Dennis stood up abruptly. Mom, is this true? Did you really keep records like that? Martha looked around in panic. Her carefully orchestrated show was collapsing. Dennis, honey, I was just trying to keep track. Keep track? Her son's voice grew harsh. You plan to humiliate my wife and son. I wanted to teach them, show them their place in the family. Their place in the family? Dennis stepped toward his mother. Mom, do you realize what you've done? Dennis, sweetie. Mom, enough. You crossed every line. How could you give a child garbage as a gift? It's not garbage, it's a lesson. A lesson. Dennis picked up the backpack from the floor. You wanted to teach my son he's less than other children? He needs to know that he's the son of trailer trash. Dennis's voice became truly dangerous. Mom, you just said those words about my wife. Martha realized she'd lost. The son whose support she'd counted on had taken his wife's side. That's it, Dennis said. Mom, you're not getting another penny from us, and stay away from our family. Honey, what are you saying? I'm your mother. You're a mother who just humiliated my child. We're done. Catherine felt a mix of relief and surprise. The husband she'd thought was a mama's boy turned out stronger than she'd imagined. Dennis is right, she said firmly. Martha, you'll never see us or our money again. Her mother-in-law tried to find support among the guests. Nancy, you understand. Children need proper discipline. But Nancy shook her head. Martha, this is too much. Giving a kid trash from a dumpster. That's not discipline, that's cruel. The neighbors also looked disapprovingly at their hostess. Pauline, get your things, Sharon said, having been silent the whole time. We need to go. Sharon understood staying was impossible. The plan had failed catastrophically, and damage control was needed. Sharon, Catherine called to her. Were you in on this? Sharon stopped at the door. Mom said she wanted to teach a lesson. Teach a 7-year-old child, your nephew. Kate, you don't understand. Mom tries to do what's best for the family. What family? One where one kid gets a laptop and cash while another gets literal garbage. Sharon had no answer and left, pulling confused Pauline behind her. The guests also began departing. The celebration was thoroughly ruined. When everyone left, only Martha, Catherine, Dennis, and Max remained in the condo. Mom, Dennis said quietly, pack a bag. I'm taking you home. Dennis, you're really choosing her over your mother? I'm choosing what's right and protecting my son. Martha looked at her daughter-in-law with hatred. You destroyed my family. No, Catherine answered calmly. You destroyed it yourself with your greed and cruelty. I'll never forgive you. Don't need you to. Just stay away from us. When Dennis took his mother home, Catherine was left alone with her son. Max sat on the couch, crying quietly. Mom, why doesn't Grandma love me? Catherine hugged her son tight. Baby, it's not about you. Grandma has problems. She's not well. Will she come back? No, she won't. Good, Max suddenly said. She scared me. That evening when her son fell asleep, Catherine sat in the kitchen with tea. Dennis returned late, looking exhausted. How's your mom? She asked. Awful. Crying. Says I betrayed her. Do you regret it? Dennis was quiet for a long time. You know, Kate, no. I don't regret it. I've known for a while Mom treated you badly, but I thought it would pass. Today, I realized she'll never change. Why didn't you speak up before? I was afraid of conflict. Pathetic, right? My wife sends Mom $2,000 every month, and I'm afraid to upset her. Catherine took her husband's hand. The important thing is it's over. But it wasn't quite over. A week later, Martha started calling all the relatives, telling her version of events. She portrayed herself as the victim and Catherine as an ungrateful daughter-in-law who turned her son against his mother. Some believed her. Dennis's uncle, Martha's brother, even called with complaints. Dennis, how could you abandon your mother? She did so much for you. Uncle Pete, do you know she gave my son trash from a dumpster as a gift? That's character building. Kids today are too soft. Uncle, are you serious right now? Dennis hung up, but most relatives, learning the full story, took the young family side. Dennis's cousin told Martha directly she'd acted disgracefully. Aunt Martha, have you lost your mind? Giving a kid garbage from a dumpster. You don't understand proper parenting. I understand you're a bitter old woman who took revenge on her daughter-in-law through an innocent child. After that conversation, Martha realized public opinion had turned against her. A month passed. Life without her mother-in-law was dramatically calmer. The $2,000 that used to support Martha, Catherine now put into a college fund for Max. Max quickly forgot the incident. The new backpack his parents bought, a nice JanSport, he liked much better anyway. But Martha didn't give up easily. She tried to meet her grandson outside his school, but the boy would run away when he saw her. She called their home phone, but Dennis hung up immediately. At the end of October, Martha made one final attempt. She showed up at their apartment complex and stood outside, shouting about betrayal and ingratitude. Neighbors called the police. An officer had a stern conversation with Martha and warned her to stay away. After that, she disappeared from their lives completely. Catherine and Dennis's family only grew stronger. For the first time in years of marriage, Dennis put his wife and son above his mother's manipulation. Max grew up surrounded by love without Grandma's lessons. Though the break with Dennis's family was painful, Catherine didn't regret anything. She'd protected her son from humiliation and shown everyone she wouldn't be pushed around. The story of the trash backpack became symbolic in their family, a reminder that even family members can become enemies, and that sometimes you have to find the courage to say no, even when it's difficult. And the $2,000 a month now went toward their son's future, not funding a cruel woman who never understood that love can't be bought and respect must be earned.